Mayoral Memo with Mathew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.
Mayor of Dubbo Regional Council, Mathew Dickerson. Good morning.
Good morning, Rod. And a chilly morning it is too.
Beautiful mornings we're having at the moment. So good for us.
Well, I'll beg to differ slightly. I would prefer it just a touch warmer early in the mornings. Out on the bike early in the mornings, it gets a bit chilly. I've had to resort, Rod, to buying heated socks. My toes were just getting too cold, so I've now got socks that I plug batteries into and keep my little toes warm while I ride my bike in the morning.
Goodness gracious. Okay.
Some may say I'm getting a bit soft, Rod.
I didn't want to say anything, but I did laugh. I'm sorry. Did you get along, I'm sure you did, and celebrate the 150th Dubbo show?
I did go along a couple of times to the show over the weekend. And one thing that was a bit different for this show compared to the last 150 shows was that it didn't rain. Normally you can bank on the fact that it's going to rain at the Dubbo show each year, but it didn't rain, which was fantastic. It was nice, cool weather. Actually, it was very nice weather to be at it. But on the Saturday, very exciting, Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beasley, ADKC, Governor of New South Wales, was there at the show to officially open the 150th Dubbo show. And there was a big crowd in attendance for that, but also a big crowd in general as I spent time walking around, looking at some of the exhibits and looking around at the rides, etc. So it was a really big crowd. I haven't heard the official numbers from the Dubbo Show Society yet, but it looked to me like a great crowd there. But the other thing that happened on the Friday night was the launch of a book celebrating the 150 years. Jen Cowley, OAM, had the tough job of actually going through all the material that was there involved with the show over those 150 years and collate that, basically putting that all into the highlights of this book. It's a wonderful book, $75 it's on sale for, and it's called 3 Days in May, celebrating 150 years of the Dubbo show and its people. And I think she did a fantastic job in capturing the essence of that show, because you can imagine with 150 years of history and so much of that recorded, you could probably have produced 10 volumes or more of a book. So it was a pretty tough job, but I think she did a fantastic job with it.
It would be definitely worth a good read.
Exactly right.
Now, on Friday, there was a meeting, the Alliance of Western Councils in Dubbo.
Exactly right. Now, we don't normally meet in Dubbo. We normally spread around where we meet, but we're pretty keen to get the new minister, the Honourable Tara Moriarty, MLC, who's the Minister for Ag, Minister for Regional New South Wales and Minister for Western New South Wales. So obviously someone that's very important to people out here in this region. So we're keen to have her along. And it's a bit easier sometimes to get ministers when you're in Dubbo because they can just fly in and fly out. So we had our board meeting there, and this is what used to be called OROC, but now called the Alliance of Western Councils. And so I think it was really good for Tara to hear from mayors and GMs from across the region and just having some of those experiences, having some of those real-world stories there. I think Tara, and to her credit, she did sit there and listen and was really quite keen just to hear stories. What are the problems? What are the issues? Tell me all about them. The thing she did promise out of all of that, obviously she couldn't promise to fix all those problems on day one, but she did promise that she would get out to some of these places, because some of these places she's never been to, and to her credit she said, I'll get out and visit some of these places and actually see what you're talking about firsthand. So I think we can look forward to a few visits from the Minister out around these areas, around the Burks and the Breeze and the Cobars, so she can understand exactly what we're talking about.
Well, I do hope they're not flying visits, but that's a discussion to have at another time with her. Council, the Dubbo Regional Council, is to do some improvements to Wheelers Lane.
This is something that we have talked about for a little while. There's fairly uneven surfaces there, and we have wanted to do some of these works for some time, but we needed to wait for all the ground underneath to dry to a level that we knew the works were going to be done and be able to be done once and done properly. That's all happened now. We've been able to move ahead with that. Some people have said to me, there's a few bumps there, just go and grab a whacker packer from the hire place and go up on a Sunday afternoon and just whack out those little bumps there. It's a little bit more than just a whacker packer on a few little lumps in the ground there, Rod. We're spending $1.774 million on doing some major works there between the railway line and Birch Avenue as you're going along there towards, for example, Orana Mall in one direction there. So the works will be undertaken there starting today. They'll go through till September. There'll be different works, there'll be lane closures, there'll be detours in place, there'll be a whole range of different restrictions as those works change and exactly what we're doing there. But just be aware of that if you go along that particular part of the road. One of the challenges for council, in fact, one of the challenges for all road authorities is everyone wants a perfect road, but no one wants to be delayed by roadworks to get that perfect road. Unfortunately, there will be delays and there will be diversions in place at some points in time, so just be aware of that as you go there. But once we get to September, the end of September, we'll have a road that should be the way it's meant to be, and that'll be much better for people that travel along there regularly.
Yes, a very important piece of infrastructure is Wheelers Lane for the city of Dubbo.
Exactly right. A lot of traffic goes along Wheelers Lane, in particular along that section there, because you've got, it's almost a feeder, a bit of roadway there that feeds traffic off in a whole range of different directions.
It's all grown up. It probably should be Wheelers Street or Wheelers Road by now.
It does seem a bit more than a laneway, doesn't it?
It does. Now, what the heck is Dubbo Regional Council doing knocking down a public toilet?
You think I've just said that I'm going to take the firstborn child of every parent in Dubbo, Rod. I've never seen so much controversy over replacing some public infrastructure. Normally, people are hassling me to replace some public infrastructure. We've got some old infrastructure and they want it replaced or renewed, or they want some new infrastructure built, and we're doing exactly that. The toilet block at the Macquarie Lions Park in West Dubbo is old. There's a huge step there that would make it very difficult for anyone in a wheelchair to actually get into the toilet. You look in the toilets and you've got beams that are structural beams that are very rusted. We've had to have assessments done over the years to make sure it's not going to fall down on someone there in the toilet. So it got to the point where we said the maintenance in this toilet is not worth the money we're spending on it. We need to knock it down and build a new one. And so we went through a process. We went out to tender. We've been talking about this. But one of the things we're doing a little bit different, and maybe this is why people are a little bit stirred up about it, is that we're not just knocking it down and building a new one in the way we might normally build a new one. We're going to do it with a 3D printed process. We'll be the first council in the nation to build some public infrastructure with 3D printing. We think it's going to make it faster and cheaper to build infrastructure, but we really need to trial it to see how well it goes. At this stage, the pricing looks okay, but again, with tenders, sometimes they can vary after the fact with variances that come through in the job. But we're spending $310,000 on building a new toilet block. That'll be 2 male cubicles and 3 urinals. That'll be 5 female cubicles, a dedicated disabled toilet. Obviously, all the other female and male will have disability access as well. So it sounds like a reasonable spend of money for that amount, for what we're getting there. And I compared that to some other toilets that have been built in Dubbo over the last few years, and certainly it's better value for money than those. But when we knock that down and when we put it on social media that this toilet block's being knocked down and you've got to use other ones for the time being, the controversy and the commentary around that was unbelievable, Rod. So I'm not really sure why, but it's okay. We're knocking it down. We're putting a new one up. Please bear with us. It'll be okay.
All righty. Now the budget, how's that going for the Dubbo Regional Council?
Well, we've got our draft budget out on display at the moment, so you've only got until next Monday, the 29th of May, to get your submissions in. And I do encourage people to get submissions in. We do read all those submissions. Wherever we can modify our budget to suit the requests from the public, we will do. You're not necessarily going to get everything you want. If you want a new toilet block, yes, that's already in there, so we're doing that. That's actually in this financial year. But there are a whole range of suggestions people put in, and again, where we can, we will cater to those. The other one that closes tomorrow is submissions for swimming pools. If you want to manage 1, 2 or 3 of our swimming pools in the local government area, then put your submissions in on how you would go about doing that and the price that you would charge to do that. That's something that I think will be better for Dubbo. We've been doing it internally over the last few years. I think going external will be better, but those submissions close tomorrow.
Rightio. And how are things going with the Heritage Plaza?
This is something that I think will be absolutely fantastic once it's finished, but it's a slow process to get there. This is out in front of the old Dubbo jail. A decision was made many years ago to buy the old building that was there, knock it down, and put a whole plaza in there, which will open up the jail and I think be a really good meeting place down in the CBD of Dubbo. Unfortunately, when some work was being done to remove the old building, remove the old car park, they probably dug down a little bit deeper than we would have liked, and they uncovered an area there that maybe some walls of the former jail there, or maybe some foundations, or maybe some fences, maybe some elements associated with the 1863 courthouse, maybe the trial yard or the 1896 perimeter wall. We don't really know what they are, but Heritage New South Wales has told us to stop work. We can't do any more work until we get an assessment. So we've engaged a firm to do a complete historic archaeological assessment and then some archaeological research around the design for the Heritage Plaza. That all costs extra money, takes extra time, and then there'll be something that we'll have to do with what's found there. It may be expose it all and cover it with perspex so you can see it. It may be cover it up and put some interpretive designs there to show what's under the ground. I don't really know what the final decision will be there, but we have to go through this process, get approval by Heritage New South Wales, and then come back and finish off that project. So it's going a bit slower than I would like. I think it's going a bit slower than the public would like, but we are slowly ticking away there, and we will get there. And once we get there, it'll be fantastic, but I'd rather get there sooner rather than later.
And you don't want to just knock it on down or anything like that, because you see those programs. I think there's one called Time Travellers, where they find all the ancient history of Rome around parts of England, and it's just fascinating. And when you've got some good old stuff in your own backyard or main street, you want to look after that as well.
Well, we certainly want to do the right thing by it. We're not interested in doing the wrong thing by it. And I'm sure there's a lot of history associated with it there. So we'll go through that process and get an outcome that I think will be good for the community and keep Heritage New South Wales happy as well.
Wonderful. Good to talk with you today.
Thanks, Rod. Always great to chat to you.
Mayoral Memo with Mathew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.